So I've been on television twice in my life, neither opportunities to be featured on television were for any criminal acts, which I'm very, very proud of. But, you know, one of the great things about digital media, and as you can see, we have a fantastic team here today, and I thank you all as well. One of the great things about digital media is that we get to not only see and hear, but also experience the physicality of a person as well. You know, some of the authors I think that we read, we don't know, you know, what they look like. But television gives us an opportunity to not only see and hear, but actually experience. And Sam Squailia is actually doing that here in this community. So I thank you for that. I'm also grateful for her show, because since I was on it, now I watch the episodes, which is great. So I have the privilege of introducing to you the moderator for our panel discussion, who will then introduce our panelists today, Sam Squailia.
Thank you so much, AJ. All right, yeah, I'm Sam Squailia, and I'm honored to be here moderating the panel for where we're going to have a discussion on stereotypes and labels and how that's affected everyone. And so before I introduce the panel, or I have them introduce themselves actually, I'd just like to say that I'm just going to spark some constructive dialogue, some discussion, and our panelists are going to take the lead. But I want everyone in the room, if you have a story to tell, or something that you'd like to say about stereotypes and labeling or whatever we're discussing, feel free to stand up and make yourself noticed, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. You can come up to this podium as well, okay? So first, how about everyone introduce yourself down the line? We'll start with Kenisha, the Yankees fan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apparently that's my label right now. This is not loser, by the way. Thank you. My name is Kenisha Coy. I am a resident of Fitchburg. Woo! Yes, Fitchburg, go. Please, can we have louder applause for that? We are in the house of Fitchburg. I have a nonprofit I began 3 years ago, My Care Initiative, that stands for Community Arts, Research, and Education. I am passionate about art as a tool and it being used to help people heal. I love humor and I connect that with pretty much everything I do. It doesn't mean that I downplay serious topics, because one of the things that we do at My Care Initiative is address abuse and abuse trauma and healing from that. I think it's important to address issues. I think it's also important to heal from said issues. I think it's important to inhabit awkward spaces, but not necessarily live in those awkward spaces. So I am excited to be a part of this panel. Troy is, I think, amazing. His wife and daughter, I had the privilege of interacting with them, and we had a balloon awesome fight. It was great. And yes, I am a Yankees fan, but go Celtics unless they're playing the Knicks.
Good afternoon. My name is Wil D'arcangelo. I have been a community advocate here in the downtown of Fitchburg for about 20 years now, producing lots of community events, cultural events, fundraising. I'm now the minister at First Parish Church, which is right here at the head of the Upper Common. I've been serving there for about 4.5 years now. And I'm the director of the Tribe Mentorship Project, which focuses on emotional and intellectual support for people who find themselves to be a strong member of the island of misfit toys. And I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Now that I'm going to introduce myself to you, I can call you my friends. My name is Jeffrey Howe. I'm a lieutenant with the police department in Fitchburg. I've been with the department for 25 years. I'm also was born and raised in Fitchburg. I went to B.F. Brown next door. I went to Fitchburg High, went to Fitchburg State University. So product of Fitchburg, proud of it. I love the city. I love the people in it. And I'm glad I'm part of this panel to discuss some of the stereotypes involved in the police and and things like that. So I now consider you guys all friends, and glad to meet you.
My name is Furkan Mahmood. My name is Furkan Mahmood. I'm part of the M.Div Muslim community here in Fitchburg. I was actually born in Fitchburg too. I went to BS Brown too. I went to Fitchburg State College, now it's University, South Street, all the school systems. So I've been in Fitchburg and I love Fitchburg. I know there's a lot of people that come and say, oh, Fitchburg, you live in Fitchburg? So I thank Troy for having me, and thank you for Troy to coming to our M.Div Muslim Community Center, and he actually took pictures there. So we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to open up, which we can talk about later on. So I just, I love the city, and I want to do more for it in the future.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Irene Hernandez. My indigenous name is Mother Eagle. Yeah, that's a surprise because a lot of people don't know that I'm indigenous. So that's one of the stereotypes. I just want to, I work tirelessly from the moment I came into this world in advocating and being the voice of those who are marginalized, those who are voiceless, and that's just always been my life's journey. So I work on many projects. One of my jobs is with Fitchburg Community Connections, and the mission is to prevent abuse and neglect by finding resources to bring back to Fitchburg, to bring to our families, so that they don't become involved with the system. And my other job is that I'm a director of Adult Day Health Center that caters to the needs of the multicultural aspect of our community, and we provide services in bilingual health services. And we can talk about more of that as we begin, but I'm just so happy that we're all here to discuss this, because there's so many layers to each one of us, and I think it's an amazing opportunity for you all to ask questions of one another and of us as the panelists, because we're all the same, and I believe there's only one truth in us being, and that's love.
So I'm Mary Heafy. I have the distinction not of living in Fitchburg, but I sure love working and playing in Fitchburg. I am the president and CEO of the Arc of Opportunity. And so part of my interest here today, and part of my passion, is really to break down the stereotypes, both as a person with a disability and making a career of working with people with disabilities, to shift from focusing on disability to focusing on ability. None of us want to be known for what we can't do. We all have unique gifts and talents, and so bringing people who have disabilities from the margins to having a voice is part of what my passion is, and look forward to continuing this conversation today.
All right, so I want to kick off the discussion with first a kind of question on the word stereotype. Right now, the word when you hear the word stereotype, to some people it might mean something very benign, but to other people they might take very strong offense, or strong emotions might come up when you hear stereotype. So I'll start with you, Kenisha. What do you think of when you hear the word stereotypes?
I think if I initially hear stereotype, it could be something that is actually positive or negative. I personally am one to actually try and listen to what a person is saying and how they're saying it before I put that set of judgment in. So let's take Black person, because when you look at me, oh my gosh, I am a brown colored person.
You are?
Oh, I know. So that has, I think, positive stereotypes, but it definitely has negative stereotypes. Living in Fitchburg is more of a rural, it's the most rural I've ever lived in any place, in all my places that I've lived. And I will still be in rooms where I will be the only brown skinned person there. And I get questions like, well, why are you here? Like, well, why are you here? Well, Black people don't live in Fitchburg. I'm like, apparently we do. That's stereotype. But, oh, you speak so well. Well, I don't know what to do with that. Does it mean that Black people can't be articulate? Can we or can't we? Well, for some, that is a stereotype. for me, I try to look and live around those and use my life as a point of education in that you're bringing this to the table, and if we're willing to have this conversation about this stereotype, how can this be the most positive experience before we leave each other? So I don't know if that answers, but.
Will, what about you? The word stereotype.
Stereotype is interesting because, to type someone, to sort of categorize them, to fit them in a slot. I mean, it's natural to humans to want to fit people into categories so that we can kind of understand them. But it's like the difference between eating food and having a food addiction. We can't switch to like a moderate use sometimes of these types of things that we really need to. But what I find interesting about that word stereotype is that stereo means it's coming at you from both sides.
Yeah.
And when people are coming at you from both sides with a categorization that doesn't suit you or sort of manages to communicate a negative idea, the way to sort of get around that is to be one of those voices coming at you from the side that says something different, so it no longer is in stereo.
Yes.
That's what I have to say about that.
That's awesome.
Stereotypes, what's it mean to me as a person, as a police officer? Well,
Does it have different meanings for you as a person or as a police officer?
let me explain. Stereotype as a police officer, that stereotype can be positive. In other words, everybody knows if you call the police, they're going to come. So that's a positive stereotype. But sometimes someone might see a police officer and say, automatic, because of something that might happen down on the West Coast. They might say all police officers act a certain way, do a certain thing. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. As a police officer, we're trained from experience. We go to something, we see people at their worst. We see a lot of sad things, a lot of bad things. We see a lot of happy things too. But we're trained when we go to a call or see something, we look at the whole situation. We don't just look at the person or how the person might live. Everyone has special needs and special circumstances, and where we try to look at the whole picture to solve problems and figure things out. We work hard not to stereotype, because you can't in this profession. I think everybody stereotypes at times. That's just a matter of life. But doing events like this, we can try to overcome it. And we've come a long way in society. We have work to do still, but we're on the right path. And I'm glad I'm part of it. I'm glad I'm talking about it. But as a police officer, we love our community, we love what we do, and we work very, very hard not to stereotype situations, and we try to offer the best help we can give anybody. But unfortunately, like I said, something might happen on the West Coast, and someone might have the wrong, unfortunately, people don't believe that at times. But I just want everybody to know that it's the furthest thing from the truth. Thank you.
Stereotyping is almost like a label. Actually, I was just looking on the other day on Facebook. They had a picture of Archie Bunker and Jefferson standing together and said, "We can't do this in this age now." So it's true. People are very, 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 how would you call it? They're scared, and they say anything you say will change anything. I'll give you an example. This lady, I know her, Heidi Dietrich, her name is, a very nice person. And I helped her with groceries here and there. And the thing she said to me afterwards, she was like, "I didn't know Muslims could help Christians." So I'm like, okay. But the good thing about her is, she's changed her ways, well, her thinking, she had that thought in her mind, but once I helped her out, she's like, oh, okay, this is different. So I think once you approach someone, and the thing is, you can't just sit back in a corner and just relax. You have to actually get up and go forth. That's something we're doing as a Muslim community. I invite everybody. We do coffee, cake, and true Islam every week at 6 p.m. We've been doing it for a couple of years. And people will show interest in the event. I know that people have, things to do, but sometimes they might not just come because it's a mosque. But once you come and we say, oh, you got to go over the ladies section, because we have separate sections in our for men's and ladies, and they're like, oh, ladies section? So when they go over there, they don't leave. It's like 8, 9 o'clock, and they're still there. The husband or the man will be like, okay, it's time to go, but they're still there talking. So I think once you open up yourselves, over here, we went to the Unitarian church. Will's been great. We've went there. He's come to our mosque. It's been a great relationship. So that's what you have to do. You have to break the barrier, and that'll change all the stereotypes. You can actually have a joke about it. When that happens.
Yeah. Yes, so when I think of stereotype, I think immediate judgment. I think propaganda. I think about the 500 years of subjugation and oppression of people of color. And then, it goes on for thousands of years because it's always happened to this group or that group. But I think it's been more prominent for us now because we remember those trauma echoes of our ancestors, and we suffer. And I think being a person of color in this country has been so challenging. And so for stereotypes, I find myself all the time trying to prove that I don't have a machete in my back pocket, right? Because I think Latinos always have knives and machetes, right? Or that I like hot, spicy food, or that I make guacamole. I'm like, well, I'm from the Caribbean. I do know how to make it because I love guacamole, and I'm a foodie, right? But we have, there's distinctions in our culture. So I think stereotype is a lot of propaganda, a lot of lies, and I think the opportunity is for us to invite those conversations. And we don't have to respond in anger. We don't have to respond in resistance. We don't have to respond in any other way but in love, because a lot of the times people don't know what they don't know. They've been indoctrinated in the same ways that we have within that system of subjugation and oppression. So that's what I think about when we talk about stereotypes.
When I think of stereotypes, I think of boxes. Penning somebody into a box and making assumptions about them, and not looking at that person as a person with some curiosity. And I heard Will acknowledge that, yes, stereotypes may help people organize the world, but when it puts on labels that say you are limited to this way of being or this history, then we are not looking at the dignity and worth of each person and are making some gross assumptions. So one of the things in the disability world, for example, the ARC was an acronym at one point in time and had a word that we don't use anymore because the stereotype of what the letter R stood for was very much like a slur, and basically said, you're not a competent, capable person. And one of the women in the room today led a very strong campaign that actually resulted in a stereotype about people with disabilities being changed on a systems basis. The only thing that R should refer to when you talk about the ARC is respect, not the old word that used to be. And I'm looking at Barbara, who was quite a leader in the campaign that resulted in changing language in Massachusetts general law and the Federal Registry. Really powerful stuff, and words do matter. So when we box people in over words, it really can be quite hurtful and quite limiting. So I think stereotypes is very limiting.
So all our panel members are all upstanding members of our community. They're all amazing people. I know them all. And even at that, they all, I am sure, have been subjected to feelings, negative feelings of stereotyping, right? Everyone has. And so my next question really is open to the entire panel. You don't have to go down the line, but if you feel like talking, the question is, how have you personally been affected by being stereotyped? You.
I can lead that one off. I'm married. I have a wonderful wife. I married about 3 years ago. Thank you. I actually met her online because it's hard meeting people as a police officer when you're out and about in the community and whatnot. But when I first met her, she asked one of her friends, "Oh, do you know Jeff Howe?" "Oh, he's a police officer. You don't want nothing to do with him. Police officers are nothing but cheaters, liars, and beat people." And that was her good friend that told her that. Luckily, she took a chance on me, a great chance. I love her dearly. She loves me dearly. We have a wonderful blended family now. But if she would have listened to her friend and didn't give me a chance just because of a stereotype, I probably wouldn't be married today, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am. So that's something that happened to me personally, and you know, it does hurt. I'm human. We have feelings like everybody else, and people don't really know me just because I'm a police officer wearing this uniform. It doesn't mean I'm doing bad things. I'm a person, I have feelings, and because my wife gave me a chance, married, we have a great family together and a dog, so we're very happy.
So I went to school here in Fitchburg, and I went to Hosmer Elementary on South Street, and I went to Memorial, and I went to Fitchburg High School. And starting about 4th grade is when people start to notice the difference between male and female, at least on a way that's like a pre-puberty. And being a gay male, that was noticeable to other people before it was noticeable to myself. I allowed other people's stereotyping to affect me. If somebody had told me when I was in 5th grade, oh, you're gay, and that's fine, then I might have grown up with a better idea of what it meant to be gay. As it was, I learned first that it's a terrible thing to be gay. That there's no reason that you should be friends with anybody. There's no reason that anybody should hang out with you because there's something wrong with you. I can say now that I've worked my way through that. And if I had the choice, which there's plenty of people, in a certain element of religion who believe that it is a choice. If I actually had the choice, I would choose this. I think being gay is fabulous. and all of the stereotypes that go with being gay, I'm actually happy to have. I'm creative. I can make stuff. I can be independent in a number of ways that sometimes that stereotype does just not apply to other people. I think that being a gay male in this day and age is a wonderful thing. I was born a week after the Stonewall riots in New York. And so both of us will be celebrating our 50th birthday next year. And I am so glad to say that after this amount of time, that I'm proud to be who I am. Not because someone told me that gay should be synonymous with pride. I'm grateful for that messaging. But overall, I'm proud of myself just because I have overcome what other people told me that I should think about myself and have managed to work my way around it. So.
I'm going to pick up where wonderful Wil has left because you said something that I've been thinking, but I was nervous about mentioning. I do think that stereotypes, there can be some positive things that can result from a stereotype. I don't think that they are innately an evil thing. I think it's how the person's intention is and what you're going to do with it. And taking from what you just said is going to now dive into my story. Living here in Fitchburg, I'm going to use a negative word, and we're just going to hopefully have to deal and live with it. We're all familiar with the N-word, and I don't mean nice. I've been called that more times living in Fitchburg than I have in living in the South. And I've lived in the South. But the thing is, it has impacted me in interesting ways in that I'll tell you one particular story. I was walking into a pretty well-known building, and I was the only person in the lobby. And a couple of people in here might know this. There was a woman who looked out and said to her coworker, "There's just too much color in here." And then under her breath, but still loudly, freaking N-I, boo, 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 boo. And I looked around because I just really couldn't believe that something like that was said. And I'm in New England, and I'm in Massachusetts, and I'm in the 21st century? Are you kidding? You look like an antiquated, you look like a Betamax to me. And I had this experience where it was like, well, half of me just wanted to just not be a nice person and say some interesting and not nice things. And then the other half of me was like, that's exactly what they would want you to do. What are you going to do with this?
Yes.
So I left, composed myself. Actually, that's not true. I called my friend and I had ugly cry. And then, like, all right, I have to go into this building because it's what I need to do on a regular basis. So I decided to employ something called killing somebody with kindness. And this is 4 years ago. And I promise you, every time I go into this person's space, oh my goodness, it's so great to see you. I'm like, oh. But that's not what you said when you first saw me. So I have used that as kind of like a cornerstone in my life to look at when people are coming at you with negativity, because we're all broken in some way, let's just be honest. Some people tend to live in their damage, and other people tend to try to fuse it and try to make positive out of whatever has happened to them. I really try to utilize the more positive of whatever's happening, and then go find my friends when I need to ugly cry, and then be able to move forward. Because living in that damaged space does nothing for anyone. And it would be easy to say, oh my goodness, Fitchburg is so racist. But it wasn't Fitchburg's fault.
That's right.
And quite frankly, when I had certain conversations with this individual, I found out certain things that happened to her as a result of her looking at my skin and thinking that I was like these people that hurt her. And it's, well, you do understand that the two are not the same. Oh, I understand that now. So it was awkward. I didn't like her for a while, but I can't call her my friend now, but I can definitely say that we are definitely friendly, and it has been a better experience. And
You helped her to break her stereotype.
I tried, yeah, I did. But I do think that stereotypes can actually be a positive thing, because like Will said in his identifying as a gay man, I identify as a heterosexual, but as a part of me being of African American descent, and only very few people pick up on this, I have Irish within me. I have I have English within me. I have Cuban within me. I identify with all these different cultures. So for me, I don't have to pick just one. And anyone who tries to make you just pick just one thing, you don't have to. You get to choose how you want to be. So I'm going to stop now.
Anyone else at the table?
Sure. So I think the stereotypes in my journey, they have really pushed me higher. Yes. I think that because everywhere that I went from the beginning of time, I can remember that teachers would be like, oh, wow, you know those words? Because I loved literature, I loved reading, and I loved vocabulary words, my favorite, right? Loved looking up vocabulary words. My dictionary was my best friend. And I just remember that as being the process. And then every job that I had to prove myself. Mm-hmm. And every job that I had to bring in documentation and do research and prove it, and prove it, and prove it, and prove it. So it's really helped me it's benefited me because I'm always ready. However, it's sad because people doubt you all the time. So one specific situation, I was at a hospital meeting in one of the hospitals in the area. There was about 60-something people there, and we were talking about a platform that we created at the Massachusetts Public Health Advisory Council about race, about internalized racism, about what does that mean. And then we went into the historical part of our country. And so I remember this, there was 3 people that stayed back to talk to me about that because I brought them all the information. And one man said to me, no, Irene, now, that stuff that you were talking about, where did you find that at? And so I said, well, let me help you. In 1790, our government said that your whiteness makes you a naturalized citizen. Right. But don't go by what I say. The same research that I've done, you can do. But as a matter of fact, I'm going to help you. Because in my pocket right here, I have all this documentation that I brought with me, because I know that many times it is hard to hear information from a person of color that is actually correct. Because there's always a suspicion when we bring information that there's something maybe that's not completely true, or that maybe it's coming from a place of, oh, they're just so passive, they're just so feisty, their energy, and they're aggressive. No, we come with documentation because we know that a lot of times we have to prove ourselves and prove that we do think, and to disprove that journal that came out in the late 1800s that said that people of color's brains are smaller. and that they needed the Caucasian to help them in life because they needed the help. And so, we have to continue to disprove these things because they happen all the time. People think that it's okay to say, oh, there goes the Sevilla Vergara. And I'm like, okay, don't say that I'm a bimbo. I mean, in real life, she's amazing. She's a crazy, amazing businesswoman. But what she sells is not what I want to be, what I want to be aligned with in this life.
So I'll add the story about invisible disabilities. If I pull the very powerful hearing aids out of my ears, it's going to be a really silent room. And I do a little looking this way to make sure I can see you so I can hear you. And when people, do you know how many people talk to like this? And I would forever be saying, can I see your mouth so I can hear you? And when you need to do that, you actually get some real pushback around, what do you mean you can't? And you have to explain yourself, which I don't believe any of us should have to do. It's reasonable to say, hey, Irene, do you mind if we sit so I can see you? Because I can hear you better, and it's really important to me to hear what you're saying. And allowing for the fact, so the pushback I often will get is, wow, you speak really well. You pronounce your words well. Yeah, I do. My mother worked really hard with us around, because it's a genetic significant deafness. And so I find myself going back to the question around stereotypes of what people assume about somebody. Am I being obnoxious because I'm saying, hey, Irene, can we look at each other so I can hear you? Or is it something that I need to justify why I'm saying, would you mind moving your hand from your mouth so I can hear? I'm picking on you a moment there, because we all do that very easily. But do we have to justify to each other, or can we relate as people simply to say, I really care about what you're saying, and it's going to be much easier if I can see you? So I think the invisible disability sometimes creates another stereotype.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say something on that too. I mean, it's as Irene talked about it too, and I said before, we have to actually come out and display ourselves. We have to let everybody know that, we're this, we're that, because even on Facebook, when we started our True Islam campaign, there was not a lot, but most of the people were in favor. There's some people that say, oh, that's where they have the terrorists, that's where they do their drills and all that stuff. But once you develop that relationship with the community and other people get to know you, and other people start, I was like, should I answer this? And all of a sudden, Sam answers it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you just got to build that. There's actually a motto where a third successor of a community said, love for all, hatred for none. And every year when we do our parade, we march with that banner, love for all, hatred for none. And it's carried out throughout the whole world. And that's how we express ourselves. Even when people come to us and say, oh, Muslims kill other people, we reply to them. We say that, ISIS has killed more Muslims than any other people. We say that in our holy book, it says that if you kill man, it's like killing all of mankind. If you save man, it's like saving all of mankind.
Yes.
So it's just, like you said before, research. You got to do your own research. Even if you go on Google and say bad verses of the Bible, bad verses of the Quran, you'll find them. You'll find websites. But if you open up the actual book, they're not really there.
Yeah.
So you just have to look yourself, do your own research. But at the same time, like I said before, you can't just sit back and relax. You gotta come out to the community and invite them at least.
Be proactive.
Yeah, exactly.
But Juan, when you just said what you said, I just wanted to say something really quickly. Thank you for saying that. It was really powerful. I think, and I don't even know if Troy really understands the magnitude of how important his work is, and really what all of our presence here, it represents being able to do something and not sitting back and allowing people to take over within their negative sphere. It doesn't have to be that all of us have to walk around with a sign and a campaign like, oh, in that way, but we are that protest. We are that embodiment of change. So it's either we are going to do something, or we're just going to allow the negativity to overshadow us. And when you were speaking, I thought of actually you, Lieutenant Howe. With my nonprofit, for 2 years we brought National Night Out to Fitchburg, because in my opinion, it was an important initiative. I got a lot of emails about how is it possible that you are a black person working with the police. I love Lieutenant Howe. Are you kidding me? He is so funny. He gives great hugs. And he and I and our chief Ernie, we have had some great conversations about ethnicity and just sometimes they've been difficult, but one thing I've known from him is that he's willing to not only have those conversations but to address those issues. Troy's art displays, I mean, they give us an opportunity to be able to interact with one another, but also combat some of the negativity that's going to inevitably touch us when we leave this room. Yeah. So, like what Dr. Martin Luther King said, he said a lot of prolific things. I'm paraphrasing here. It's not necessarily the words from our enemies that's going to resonate or stay with us. It's going to be the silence of our friends. What are our friends, what are our neighbors going to do? What are we going to do?
Would anyone from the room like to share a story of their stereotype, being stereotyped? Matt?
Hi. I've been living at Apple Tree for about 5 years now. Before I moved here, I lived at Brigham Park and Grove. Amanda and Stacia are so nice to me. They help us with our goals, and they cook for us, they go for rides with us. I play with Zach on the Wii, and I have an iPad at home and program. It keeps me busy, and I love watching TV with my friends. Yes.
Would anyone else like to share? Yeah.
Hey everybody. Hi, I was in foster care for a long time, and I was on TV on Jane Williams' child, and I got adopted this quick. I was on TV and I had a lot of special needs stuff, and I got help.
Hi, my name's Kevin Lavoie. I became an Eagle Scout a long time ago. I'm the highest rank in the Boy Scout. Thank you for all your support, and happy holidays, and you guys have a great night.
My name is Jane, and I live in Washington for the past 7 years with a wonderful family, and I love them very, very much, and they do a lot for me. And I help them out too. They're wonderful people. I also want to wish everybody in this room a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
And here comes my friend Barbara Smith. Barbara, like, speak you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Smith, and I live with a family that love me. and cares for me. Just because I have a disability doesn't mean I can't do everything.
That's true.
Hi, I'm Madeline, and I actually work with all of the people that are here that have disabilities from the Arc of Opportunity. And having worked in this field, you gain a great deal of respect for the amount of stereotypes that you see that are around that population. I mean, I have my own, but it comes a lot with the field. And to see them get up here in front of a group of people and to be able to talk about their story and where they're at right now means a lot to me. Because of the fact that they're learning these everyday skills from the families and the ARC and the workers that we have there. So on behalf of us at the ARC, thank you guys for listening to our story. And we're going to actually head out, so sorry for it being so loud.
Afternoon. I'm Jeremiah Breaks, and I live in Shoreham, Mass. This is my fire department, same where I live. This is Mom, my dad, and I like music, so we're like, thank you, and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
I was just going to take it. Okay. AJ and I have the same problem here. There we go. Are we on?
I think you turned it off.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So a couple years ago when I was still single, someone messaged me who was a vegan, and I was talking to my friend Colin about this. I said, I'm really apprehensive about it because every vegan I've met has been a selfish misanthrope. And what Colin said to me, he said, you should give her a try, because I didn't know this 2 years before. When I got to know Colin, I was the first political conservative he ever knew in a positive light. So I was bringing this own prejudice into it, and he told me a story about myself, and that made me reassess the situation. The date was horrible, by the way, but nothing to do with the veganism. And now Colin's boyfriend, I'm his first I'm not a social conservative, his first political conservative that he's known. So I'm trying to set a good, be on my best behavior to set a good example.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so I have a question to our panel about social media. For many, we're at a point where social media is defining our identity or who we are. Has social media had an effect on your identity or how you put yourself out there? And have you changed things that you do or things that you post about yourself to the public due to these identities that you put out to social media?
So I have this rule about the internet, and I learned it on Discussing Fitchburg Now. Never say anything unkind to anyone for any reason about anything. Only speak good. And that is a rule that too few people follow. But I can say that the minute I adopted that rule, I only had a positive experience on the internet. And I know that so many of us see all of these, I mean, when somebody is able to just clickety-click away at home without having to face the person that they're talking about, they can say the most horrible, horrible things that they'd never feel comfortable saying to their face. The only thing that I've changed is just what I will type. You know, I only believe in kindness online, and I never get involved in all of these horrible debates that go back and forth, the horrible things that people can say to one another. But I am always sure to comment positively whenever I see anybody doing it right. And so I encourage everybody to do as much positive reinforcement as possible. Whenever you see anybody commenting in a kind way, thank them for it. It doesn't matter whether you want to participate in the rest of that conversation, but if you're watching something and you see someone say something kind, especially in the midst of a bunch of negativity, just say thank you for your kind words. Take the time to comment on that. If you're afraid of getting barraged with a whole bunch of notifications because you commented, you can actually turn off the notifications for this post. But do take the time to make a point of complimenting people and supporting people when they take a moment to be kind.
Just to follow up, Wil, do you believe that this way that you put yourself out there on social media, that you only react in positive ways, do you feel like that has affected your identity in non-social life, non-social media life?
In a way it has, but the thing, it's actually in the social media life that I think I've even been more impacted, because when somebody says something that is kind of quasi, almost rude to me, 10 people jump on them and go, "Don't you talk that way about Wil." And so I appreciate that, and I feel like that there's people out there defending me because I always maintain this rule of kindness. And so that has oozed into my normal life too, and I do tend to be a nice person most of the time. I don't think there's too many people out there who've heard me be negative, but I really, I feel a sense of warmth when I watch people defend me, even for just minor little, are you sure you should be saying this idea kind of thing, and people shut that down.
Our friends speaking up, right, Kenisha?
Yes, exactly.
No, I just want to piggy off that. I want to piggy off that. I just mentioned it before about social media and Facebook, how people, but you act in kindness, and even if they say something bad to you, if they say, "Oh, you guys are terrorists," or "You didn't say this right," or "You do this wrong, you did that wrong," you still respond to them in a nice manner. If they keep going on and on, you say, "Hey, have a nice day, God bless you,"
That's right.
Just return it like you said, in kindness. And you're right, it just works. It works. So as long as you appear the same way, then they will change eventually. Even if they don't, it doesn't matter. You just move on in your life.
There's more of us than there is of them.
Exactly, you're right.
But as a police, as a police department, many of our calls start out from social media. A post, as he says, takes a life of its own, turns into negativity. And then, unfortunately, people see it, so they believe it. Sometimes it creates fights, threats, any type of school situation. It takes on a life of its own. We've had cases where something was said in Boston, but someone did a Snapchat here in Fitchburg, so then it became a Fitchburg issue. Then you're working with the Boston police. So it's social media is very challenging for us. It's almost like another full-time job, trying to monitor it, watch it, and try to contain it. It's a great tool. Our department uses it. I actually run our department Facebook page. I do all positive stuff on there.
You do a great job.
Thank you. We never get onto any of the negativity because I'm with him. We're hoping we can change it and do a little bit at a time, just keep stuff as positive. But it's it is challenging. And a lot of times someone will say something on one of the social media sites that, well, the police aren't doing this, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. But no one ever called the police to make a complaint, so we were never even aware of it unless we happen to come across it on social media. So that's important to note too. But yeah, social media is very challenging for us. And for when I started out back in 1994, there was no social media, no internet. It was totally different. Yeah. There was more interaction one-on-one. So you formed a lot of bonds with people. Now it's so easy just to go back and forth on Facebook. You never really create a bond. That's why I love events like this, because you create them bonds that you need. I know everybody here in the panel and nice people, and we have these bonds, and you can overcome the stereotypes. That you can people. Yeah.
There is one thing that I wouldn't mind pointing out, that the internet is still new. we're still figuring this out. I mean, there's a learning curve to this here, and I'm fascinated to see when we make these choices to sort of spread kindness rather than difficulty, that's going to establish the platform for how we develop the etiquette that is bound to follow, that is bound to develop as we have any new technology. I mean, cell phones, all of these technologies, we're still learning how to be polite around one another while using these things. So we have to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. Yeah. There's a huge learning curve that we're in progress here, and including politically correct language. We're the generation who's doing the heavy lifting on changing our words. Eventually, the words that we deem today to be irresponsible language will be the way we look at cigarettes on an airplane. We won't look at those things anymore in the same way that we look now. When we think of words that we would never, or that we've been using our whole lives, and we've just learned that those words are not fair, accurate, like the R word, for instance. That word, I have to say, that word is in my yearbook description. I was using it to describe myself, and I'm ashamed that word is in my high school yearbook.
It remains a playground slur.
Right. But now I would never think to use that word. Now I have a daughter who has challenges and has been called that word. But 20, 30, 50 years from now, no one will think of using those words in the same way anymore. And so we should cut ourselves some slack that this is the era that all of this change is occurring. And there's a lot of work that we're doing, and we should just cut ourselves a little bit of a break while we're figuring it out.
The other possibility, though, I think is social media for me is a way to make myself vulnerable. I've grown up as a white woman in a society that has a history, is grounded with a lens of assuming white. And when I am able to say, I'm challenging my own thinking, I'm willing to say, okay, yeah, I've made these stereotypical assumptions about how the world should work because I didn't think differently and more deeply, and willing to say, okay, if I react this way, that's some white fragility, and get over myself and take some responsibility here. So I think I can put that out being kind, but also being vulnerable, and maybe helping create space that the kind of conversations, of the labels that we're willing to give ourselves in this exhibit allow us to generate conversation, both to make connections, to break stereotypes, and to increase the fact that we share more we have more in common than we are different, if we allow ourselves to be that way, but challenging our own assumptions about how we see the world.
That's right.
And what those labels mean, and being willing to say, boy, my assumptions of my 60 plus years are biased.
Thank you. Okay, so we have to wrap up this panel, but I'd like to end on, on when you segueing from breaking stereotypes, right? So when we talk about breaking stereotypes, how do we do that? So I would just like to go down the line. We could start with you, Mary, if you'd like, and just
better
say
hear the question first, Sam.
Say one way that maybe everyone should change their ways, one action we can take to break stereotypes. I'll actually start. I got a good one. Let's stop calling only little girls bossy. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Strong, competent, capable, not bossy. I guess I would say seeing person as a unique person first, and finding that spark to make a connection would be what I think is the most obvious thing to do to build bonds and not walls.
Thank you. Irene?
I just think that we just need to love each other. I love to love and hug. I give FBHs all the time for everybody that knows me. But the truth is this, is that...
Is that a full body hug?
Yes. FBHs. So now, the truth is, though, is that when we see one another, we should affirm one another. Mm-hmm. We should say, hello, how are you, and really mean it. And then if we have an opportunity to say, hey, I want to ask you something about your culture, your ethnicity, your background, because I don't know and I have some misconceptions and I want to learn more about you. I think we need to stop being afraid and like Mary said, just be vulnerable and be willing to learn and to have an exchange with others in those conversations.
Thank you, Irene. Furkan?
I would say look at everybody equally. You have to. We teach this in our community. Every year we have a Ramadan, which is our fasting mother dinner, and we teach our own kids. When they go out, when we have the community come, the kids are there in their little table all together. They see each other every single week, every day. Every week they're sitting next to each other. But when it comes to these community dinners, they're sitting in their small little groups. So we tell them, why don't you just go sit next to this guest? You don't even have to talk to him, just sit next to him, and a conversation will start. So you got to break that ice somehow. So if you don't teach your own kids or your own community that, then they'll never learn that.
Thank you. Lieutenant?
Yeah, quite simply, I wish everybody would just respect each other. We're all the same in this world, no matter who you are. We all have feelings. We all bleed. We all cry. We all have sadness. We have happiness. We're all the same. We might speak different languages. We might think a little different, but ultimately we're the same. We're human. From the police part of things, I wish people would see that in us, that we're not just robots out there doing things that people might not like at times. We're people, and we wish people would see us for that. I'm just looking at the little one right here, and what I'm thinking is sometimes what parents do is, let's say the little one's crying or something in the supermarket, and I'm happy to be in there doing something. Well, look at the police officer, they're going to come arrest you if you don't stop crying. I mean, that puts the stereotype in their heads, like when they're real little, and that's what we want to get away from. And when that does happen, I take the time and I explain, to the parent why you shouldn't do that. Even us, if we're making an arrest or something, and there's children in the house, ultimately we don't want to do it in front of the child, but sometimes it does happen. But we take the time. We want to explain to the child, what's going on, because even though if they're little, we take it for granted they know what's going on. They're very intelligent, even at a young age. But so ultimately, communication and just as a person, not only a police officer, see us as people and all equals, and things would be a lot better.
Thank you. Wil, Kenisha, a little quickly?
Yep. This is a room of people who are already on the same page regarding the idea that we're all equal, that we all deserve to be seen for more than what someone else might stereotype us for. But even knowing that, we're all still ignorant in many ways, we're all still biased in many ways, and we're all still prejudiced. And there are many ways where that shows up without us even realizing it, because we have grown up with certain things being okay that we haven't yet figured out aren't okay anymore. And so the one rule I tell the kids that I mentor is that never ridicule someone for something over which they have no control. The color of someone's skin is the way they're born. So that means that's off limits. The color of their hair. You don't know, if somebody's overweight, you don't know why. It may have nothing, it may be completely out of their control. The types of choices that they make are sometimes out of their control. But the things that you can't make fun of are things about which people have no control over changing. So that's what I teach.
Thank you.
All right, so Sam said quick, so I edify everything that everybody said, and I will just ask everyone to consider regarding stereotypes and anything. You might be an angel in somebody's story, but you're also a villain in somebody else's. So consider that. Mm-hmm. That's the writer in me pushing that up.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Sam, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for your really vibrant participation in our project, and particularly our panel, Sam, the staff here at the museum. Thank you very much. So, again, I have to say, that every single moment that I spend with the project is an opportunity for me to grow. I have had the privilege of spending time with certain members of the panel in their environment and learning more and growing as an individual, and I pray that that has been your experience today. because that is an integral part of our mission. So again, thank you for being here today. And please, there's still some more food. Take time to see more of the exhibit. Now that you know more about these lovely people, you may see that there are more things that you can learn and know more about the people that you live with here in Fitchburg. So again, thank you very much.